closeness. People have problems with closeness. So just like love is an acrostic where it actually is about 3 different interventions we can do, plus make a valuing statement. This CLEAVE acrostic we can print out, give to people, and it is a bunch of different interventions also. So C, change actions to positive. You know, that is not going to make people restore the emotional bond, but they might restore the emotional bond if they're more positive and less negative with each other. Loving romance, challenge them. What can you do to show that you love the other person? How can you bring romance back? This week, I want you to try to take some action to bring some romance back into the relationship. I might just say that when I work with people in that assessment session, that feedback session after the assessment, and we're agreeing to do counseling, what I ask them is, you've put a lot of investment into your relationship, like years into your relationship. Would you be willing to work hard for 1 work week on your relationship? And people are like, well, duh, of course I would. They don't realize what they're getting into, of course. They're getting into an hour of that for every session that you're going to see them. So maybe if that's 10 sessions, there's 10 hours out of your 40-hour work week. That means you got 30 hours to give them things at home that they have committed to do, you see. And so you can actually get them to do homework because they agreed to do this. You can ask them about it. You can hold them accountable for it. A, adjust the, E, it's reading. It's always been a problem of mine. E, employ a calendar. So time is the way that we control the intimacy in our life is by controlling the way we spend our time. Every activity that we ever do is either a distancing activity, an intimacy-producing activity, or a coactive activity. So I manage my intimacy and distance needs by how I apportion my time. If I have a high need for intimacy, I will tend to go into a field, for example, like counseling, that puts me in intimate situations. But, you know, the more intimacy needs that I get met through counseling, the less I may need to have met in my relationship. So if I've got a big need for intimacy, well, good, my relationship gets to be very intimate and my work gets to be intimate. If I have a moderate need for intimacy, I may choose to go into some writing. I'm going to write books. I'm going to sit and relate to my typewriter 8 hours a day so that I have intimate activities with my partner. So we can plan how, or people can plan how they're going to manage their needs for intimacy by adjusting the way that they're spending their time. If they don't feel that they have enough intimacy in their life, what are they going to take out that is an alone activity and fill with some kind of intimacy activity? A, adjust intimacy elsewhere. This is to, suppose that I am feeling like my intimacy needs are pretty well met. My wife doesn't feel that her intimacy needs are pretty well met. I'm going to stop having lunch with my buddies and sharing, things out of my life with my buddies so that I am able to spend more intimate time with my wife. V, value your partner through all this, and E, enjoy yourself sexually. This has to do with dealing with sexual problems. So, in promoting intimacy, remember, in fact, in all of these interventions, I said it's important to use interventions that do more than just have people talk, because they'll come away with different perceptions. So it's to use interventions that make change sensible. So one of the best examples of that is an intervention that has been, I think, developed by Salvador Minuchin, and that is to use the physical space in the office as a metaphor for the amount of intimacy that has been experienced. This was later adapted in solution-focused therapy in their intervention that they call scaling. So I saw the Minuchin one first, and so that's the one that impressed me. What it does is it gets people to talk about their intimate experience. How much intimacy do they have? And then once they've talked about it, I say, I want you to imagine that this room is a scale from both of you standing against the wall on each side of the room, and that represents 0 intimacy. And both of you standing in the center of the room hugging represents an intimacy of 10. So I'd like for you to place yourselves in the room here to show how much intimacy you feel right now toward your partner. So when you do that, I don't know if you all have tried that, but when you do that, what you get is you get a lot of negotiation. Okay? So the guy will position himself here, and he'll see the wife there, and he'll do this, and she'll be looking and going. And so they're negotiating. So eventually they stop moving. Then you say, okay, so now where would you like this relationship to be? How much intimacy would you like to have? Move yourself to that position. At that point, you will often see a number of relationship dynamics emerge suddenly. So the wife usually will want to have more intimacy than the man. Not always, but most of the time if you're playing the statistics. So you end up, when you say, okay, arrange yourself where you would like to be, you see the wife going like this and the guy going, right? Because he doesn't feel maybe that he has quite as much need. So you stop them because they're having about, going to chase each other around the room here. And so you stop them, you say, stand still, the guy. Now you place yourself, Susie, where you would like this to be. And she comes up and she puts herself at, say, a 9 out of 10. You say, okay, now, Susie, you go back here, and Johnny, where would you like to be? And he'll put himself at maybe 8 out of 10. Now, you get them to talk about why they would like this at each point. So, why would you like it to be here? Why was that? Did that feel too close when she came in close? And he'll say, well, I like to have intimacy. I like to have the feeling that we can be as intimate as we can possibly get, but not all the time. And I have just a little more need for space than she has. And so I sometimes feel like she's trying to take me over. And you ask her what she feels, and she says, well, I feel like I want us to have a really intimate relationship. And so I do everything I can do to create this relationship, and he's avoiding me, like he doesn't want to be close. You see, so a lot of the dynamics come out here, especially the distancer pursuer patterns show up right here. So this uses the office as a metaphor, the space in the office as a metaphor for the amount of closeness experienced. So what you're trying to do now is you're trying to spend about an hour working on their intimacy. So you try to get them to do something that will create more closeness in the relationship. So what might create more closeness? What might they do?
Cuddle.
They might cuddle. So if you can stand it, you can direct them to cuddle right there, you know? You can go, I can't watch, you see. What else could you do?
Spend more time together.
Spend more time together. They can't really do that right here, but that would be a good thing in the long run, okay? Or in this week to do. What could you do right here to get them to feel? Talk about important things. So maybe they've got, and maybe it's an important thing that is not controversial, that they don't usually fight about, okay?
Share a happy memory they had together, maybe their honeymoon, their wedding day.
Okay, reminisce together about some of the happy times in their relationship. You see, so you get them to share positive things. And after you can feel their mood getting a little bit better, a little bit closer, you say, let me stop you, and I want you to move to the position that you feel right now that reflects your closeness. And so they'll move a little closer. Now, just human nature. You have got them to move closer. What do you think they'll do? Want to keep going? That's one possibility. Usually what they'll do is they'll now resist you because you're making them show that they are closer than they had felt before. So they tend to immediately have a fuss, okay? And they object to something because they can't tolerate this closer feeling that you've just had them talk about these really positive things. So good. I don't care as a therapist. I'm glad if they do that. That's a success. I let the feeling build just a little, not a lot. I let the feeling build and I say, okay, stop. And often you have to say, stop, stop. Okay? You're not feeling as close as you were feeling before. Move to the position you feel right now. They move back, farther apart. Great. What they have just shown, and you make this point to them, they have just shown that they have control over how intimate they feel with each other. They can make themselves feel farther apart by arguing, by doing negative things toward each other, or they can make themselves feel closer together. They have demonstrated that in a physical way, that they cannot walk out of that office and deny that they have that control over their relationship. You see, so this is the power of using physical elements to these interventions to make change sensible.